Our topic for the hour is Let's Talk Money. For the discussion, we have Monika Halan and Sreeduth Yes Pillai.
Monica, um, let's talk and let's talk money.
Always.
Now, I have to start with a confession here. When I got a call from Sabin and said you got to do 2 sessions, and one was in Expected Lines, and I do a lot of sports wherever I go. So we're going to do Let's Talk Money, and I must say I was very hesitant. What am I going to do with money? And very reluctantly, I picked this book up because I really wanted to know what it's all about. But let me tell you, this is the best thing that I've done in a long, long time. I'm not trying to butter her or make her feel good. This is a real good book. Because what happens is generally when you talk about money, talk about finance, it tends to get boring and you can't relate to it because of all the kind of high funder jargons and the vocabulary involved. But here, you and I can relate to this book really well and let that be the starting point. We are fitness conscious. We are conscious about our mental health, physical health, but somehow, and we are also a country wherein we say, kitna deti hai, right? And also, when you buy something, we say, kuch kam hoga. But we are terrible at managing finance. And two, I'll combine two questions, then I'll take the back seat. And second, why is it that we don't talk about money enough?
We don't talk about money, and that's right. I'll take your second question first. I think it's a poor country response. We've been poor for centuries. So there is a memory which is handed out that India was a very rich country. We were 1/3 of the global trade share, but then it fell into poverty. And remember, when people, generation after generation, have no hope of ever being not just rich, but even not poor, then you start putting poverty on a pedestal. You start having a morality about money, and you start saying that money is bad. Because you know what? It's the evil rich. It's them who are bad, who are rich. We, the poor, are the good people. We are the upholders of morality. So I think it's been a poor country response. That's one of the reasons that we simply don't discuss money. But money is part of the 4 purusharths of Indian culture. It is kama, artha, dharma, moksha. So arth, which is money, is very much inherently a part of Indian culture. It's just that we've forgotten that it is a building block. It's a leg on which the life stands. So that's why we don't discuss money. So you said that we don't. This is one of the neglected areas. We think of financial, we think of physical fitness, we think of getting money as, when we go to buy something. I think it's also because we don't discuss it at home, and our education system is completely blind towards any conversations about personal finance. So what I like to tell, especially the young people, is that you are told all the time that you should do well, you should study, you should get good marks, do well. What does this doing well means? It does mean earning money. It does. So a designation, prestige, all are a part of it. But the underlying of this thing that you should do well, is earn money. Basically, don't be poor.
Right.
But nobody tells us how to look after it. So you prep, you work so hard, you get into higher education, business schools, medical, engineering. And when that first check comes, when that first bank credit comes, you don't know what to do with it. And then begins a cycle of trying to first you just enjoy the money, which is fine. But there is no systematic way in which somebody tells you that this is the way you need to think about money. And that's where this book comes from. Investing comes in chapter 8. It comes far into the book. It is really about learning to swim in the shallow before you go to the deep. So, like you said, the first few chapters are very easy to read. I'm really prepping you to take the necessary steps before you start investing. What happens today is that people are bombarded by financial products, mutual funds, insurance, gold, crypto. But that decision must come when you're in the deep end of the pool. In the shallow, you need to first learn how to swim. So that's where this book comes in. I'm helping you to learn how to manage your money for a lifetime.
Right. The ice has been well and truly broken. So what I intend to do is to probably have a mix and match of a few elements. One is, of course, your book will be interspersed here and there. Second would be you are a motivation, and I'll probably start with that. And the third is probably a little personal. To hire someone like you would be very, very expensive. So I can probably slip in a couple of questions that have been bugging me over the years as well. So what are you doing in a male bastion, right? I'm sure that you would have got this question a lot, and you don't like to be called frugal, but if I call you a frugal lady, I'm sure that adjectives would sit comfortably with you.
I'm a value for money person.
Yeah.
So no, I just want to then just expand again to a lot of the brand conscious people. My question to the people running after these big brands which cost lakhs is that why will you pay to have someone else's name on your bag?
Right.
So is the bag more useful? Is the bag, is it something that increases your utility?
Is your bag branded?
I mean, it's just a bag.
Okay. Right.
It's not any of the brands which are known to anyone. It's a useful bag.
Right.
A small laptop fits into it. So
Right.
there's a very practical approach to things. And if it is good, then you spend all the money you need to.
Right.
But you won't catch me dead with a brand because it's a brand.
Right.
So in that way, yes, I'm frugal. But when it is something that I need, it's not a greed, it's a need. I will go all the way and buy the best.
Right.
Okay.
So you didn't answer me for the initial part of the question. What was, how did you happen to get into this field and kind of, because traditionally we talk about money, we talk about men who have been managing it, given your generation growing up, and I understand you're from Delhi School of Economics.
That's right.
And so talk us through your initial days and how you happened to become a financial planner. And I heard that your dinner talks between you, your husband and your daughter is all about these kind of things.
Not my daughter. So my daughter is now a brain scientist.
Okay.
But my husband and me, he's also in the whole economy business space. So we joke that our normal dinner conversation is like a panel more than anything else. How did I get into it? So this is a little bit of a story. After Delhi School of Economics, I decided academia was not for me. It was too theoretical. So I joined a business magazine. Business Today was just launching. I became a business journalist. And then I studied, I did one more master's from UK in journalism. Then I joined the Economic Times. And by that time, my baby had been born. Okay, she was just very, very little. And our whole careers are based on choices you make for very strange reasons. That is the time that India's first personal finance magazine was being launched. It was called Intelligent Investor. Until then, this is the year 97. Until then, you only had stock market tip sheets. Personal finance as a genre did not exist. And I was part of Economic Times, part of the business and the stock market bureau, a very high profile job. But that office was very far away from my home. And this new magazine's office was halfway.
Okay.
So as a new mother, wanting to do both, the decision to actually quit Economic Times and join this magazine was based on the desire to cut my commute to half. And then began this journey of understanding this genre and being probably one of the first few journalists in India to understand, write on, go in depth into personal finance. And as I have gone deeper, I have gone on educating myself. So I've studied, I'm a certified financial planner. I've taken mutual fund distributor exams. I don't have licenses to practice because I do not practice commercially. I stay in education.
Right.
But I've gone on educating myself so that I have done the work which is required to be in this space. So that's how I came to be. And then once I found myself here, I found I had a natural affinity for it. And so I think the idea that basically I found that I can demystify jargon. I can turn complicated financial things into something that everyone can understand.
Right.
That seemed to help people and that would give me joy. And here I am.
So I'll combine two questions now. It's about your book, The Forward, written by whom I think is one of the best minds the corporate India has today, is Nandan Nilekani. And a beautiful piece he has written over there. And one of the things that he has mentioned over there, which caught my eye, was you don't talk down on somebody who doesn't understand finance or money per se. Instead, you become one among them, and that makes the reading not just easier, but also very, very relatable. So, my first question: how did you arrive at the decision that Nandan, you're going to request Nandan to write it? Why Nandan when you have a plethora of other people? Number two, was there a conscious decision that you took to keep yourself that way through the book, or is it that you being you?
So Nandan, because I've known Nandan for a very long time, and I have been sort of tracking his journey as he thought of this. He got involved with the UID, and it's not just that. There have been a whole lot of other initiatives that he's been a part of. And as a journalist, I came to know him, and I understood what he was doing on the digital very early on, and I was deeply appreciative of his role. And I think not many people are. I don't think the people understand the depth of difference that one person has made to the digital transformation of the country. And I think that controlling your personal finances is deeply linked with the digital transformation. Therefore, Nandan, that it is so deeply linked with the ease of operation of your bank account, of the entire piece is because of the whole digital transformation. So therefore, Nandan. What was your other question?
The second question is, you sound pretty much like one amongst us.
Yeah, I think that's the way that I write, and that's the way that I am, because I firmly believe that we are not stupid. The financial sector wants us to think we are stupid so they can sell us crap.
Right.
So if they tell us a lot of jargon and they talk about derivatives and underlying and hurdle rates, you will get impressed and you will buy the junk that they are selling. So therefore, I relate to that, and because I understand both. So one decision is to talk to 5 people and be one amongst the peer, but the other thing is, look, I can understand it. I am averagely intelligent. Like, if I can understand it, so can you. So that desire that you can actually, and it's a life-changing moment to take control of your finances in your life.
Right.
So it's been 5 years since Let's Talk Money was published. I get 2 emails a day, every day. Email, social media, something comes my way every day for 5 years saying that this changed my life. So I think for me it's more than money.
Right. So when you read a book, a couple of scenarios possible. Sometimes the characters in the book, they stand very tall and it takes time for us to forget them, or sometimes we don't forget them. Sometimes the writer becomes an entity who stands tall. But about Monika's book, when you read the entire thing, it's like, and that's something which Nandan says in his forward as well, which is slowly you retire and then you empower the reader to take control of over his or her finances, and so much so that you make yourself unnecessary by the end of it.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, he really caught that desire that here I want to give you the tools, I want to empower you so that you don't have to keep coming back to me.
Right.
Those are traps.
Don't bug me, I've given you the book.
It's not bug, it's, look, you can trap people into constantly buying a course.
This is empowerment.
It's empowerment, it's pure empowerment. Even in the next book, so after Let's Talk Money, there's Let's Talk Mutual Funds. I have not given you a list of funds to buy. I have told you how to buy a fund. That is knowledge forever. I mean, you can use it for the rest of your life, right? So it's a whole idea. I think it's my parenting gone out of control, saying that, okay, you are responsible, you handle it, you decide what you want to do. Yeah. But let me give you the tools.
So shall we use her expertise a bit? I'll ask questions on your behalf. Probably, let's. And again, taking a line from Nandan, it's like the financial problem sometimes. It's like an ostrich trying to bury its head into the sand and say, okay, I pretend not to see the problems, hoping that the problems don't see me. But it's hardly that way, right? The financial issues will have a bearing at some point. Why is it that we have so much of financial indiscipline to start with?
Again, I think it goes back to having a lack of some personal finance courses in school which give you the building blocks. And then the marketplace is very sales driven. It's very driven by people trying to sell you products. This intermediary who's a financial planner is still a very small entity. They are there, but I don't think you have large numbers helping people out, which is why it is such a mess. And you're constantly confused because you don't know who to trust. And that becomes a real problem. Like, who do you trust with your money decisions? And my communication is you only trust yourself. And how do you trust yourself? Here are the building blocks. You decide for yourself. Does this make sense? And does it work for you? And my communication is, if you don't understand anything complicated, there is no shame in being in fixed deposits and gold. At least you're doing something. I'm not trying to move you into cryptocurrency or mutual funds or wherever. I'm saying you decide how much you know. Of course, long term, it's a good idea to go to the equity market with your long term money. But should you not want to do that, do not force yourself, do not be shamed into taking decisions which are harmful to you because you don't understand. So many people have got caught in this whole cryptocurrency mess, which is because they just bought something they did not understand.
So let's talk about something which finds a prominent place for itself in the book. Is there anybody sitting here who's not stressed during the pandemic? I remember coming here for the same festival in 2020, and then a few weeks down the line, we never knew what was in store. We had a Janta curfew. We thought, okay, that's just a... But little did we know that the entire world is going to come to a standstill. We have certain missionaries failing, certain missionaries stalled, but the entire world, and people without jobs, without money, and a lot of suicides and things like that. So one of the things which really struck me, and I think there's something which I try and practice, is that practice lockdown even after the lockdown. Those are my lines. I mean, my lines are just, I don't remember exactly what you've written there, but this is, when you had lockdown, you had certain resources, and you were trying to manage with it. So even when life returned to normal, why don't you try and have the same discipline, the optimum use of scarce resources that you have? That would probably keep you in good stead in terms of financial planning. Could you please explain that?
Yeah, I think for me also, and like you said, I'm pretty frugal. I spend on what I think is necessary, but not just because it's there. I don't have to buy something because it's there. But the pandemic taught me that even for me, I did not realize how little it cost really to run the house actually. Because once you stop going out to eat, once the other expenses stop, it doesn't cost that much to have your basic food at home. Of course you need to have your home, your EMIs have to be there. So I think it's a great idea to actually practice frugality. But I'll immediately rush in and say that while it's good to be frugal, you also need to enjoy the today while looking after the tomorrow. So is there a way that you can say, put away 20% of your take home? Just 20% of your take home if you can put away, and the rest becomes guilt-free spending. So after your loans and all have been paid, about half the money still remains for you to spend. And that becomes guilt-free money. So why not make spending, why not have a target for saving, and then you can spend the rest. So it's much easier to then handle your savings because you've moved it out at the beginning of the month to your chosen investments.
So just to confirm my understanding, when you don't have a steady flow because you lost your job or there is a lockdown, you do with what you got. So your point is that probably try and pretend that probably you don't have something, that just resume coming in.
Yeah.
And a mix and match, maybe a golden path in between.
Right.
Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm trying to say that one is that, so see, people have different situations. If you're in a salary job, you know it's coming. It comes. Even during the lockdown, there may have been some cuts, but the money would come. It's really gig workers who really suffered. And for the gig workers, for the people who are self-employed consultants, the idea is that you should have 6 months of expenses in a place. If you're good for 6 months, then you don't need to worry about your next month.
Right.
People have irregular flows, they have lumpy incomes. So if you know how much you're spending every month, then you have a little pool of money which takes care of, say, 3 months of expenses at least. Plus you have 6 months in an emergency fund for an emergency. But at least 3 months for a gig worker, you should be able to fund yourself for 3 months.
Okay.
So suppose you get a lump sum today. you see how much it costs per month for you to
Right.
live,
Right.
and then make it into 3 buckets. Keep it in a account separate to your spending account, and every month credit your spending account with the amount that you will spend, so that you're sort of smoothing out your irregular income flows.
Right. The emergency fund, some of these are technical terms maybe. What you mean is all the expenses that you would incur in a month into 6. So which would
Yes.
mean your rent, your
Everything.
your EMIs,
Everything.
your kids' school fees,
Your
all
food,
of that,
your everything.
and you put that in an FD or a similar thing.
You fixed deposit, if you understand mutual funds, then money market mutual funds.
Okay.
If you don't, then fixed deposit is fine.
Okay.
So this is your, when everything is gone to hell, when COVID has happened, when you lost your job, this is the pool that you tap into. So you have a breathing space for 6 months,
Right.
where you don't need to do drastic things like sell a property or get rid of your mutual funds.
Right.
You have a pool of money which is sitting there for 6 months of your life.
Right.
Most people take about that much time to get back on their feet.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if you have 6 months of a runway ahead, you can get back.
I also understand that it's related to age as well. And if you happen to be 40 plus, like me, unfortunately, you also need to have, say, 2 years.
Yeah, so as you age, see, by the time you are in your mid-40s to early 50s, you should be fairly well on your way to your retirement fund.
Okay.
You know, so you should, at age 40, you should have 3 times of your annual income.
Right.
At 40, you should have 3 times of your annual income and
Right.
your retirement kitty.
Right.
At age 50, you should have 6 times.
Right.
At age 60, you should have 8 times of
Right.
your annual income as part of your retirement. So as you age, you know, the mix of assets is such
Right.
that at least 2 years of expenses should be in a non-equity product.
Right.
That's what it means. You have the money.
Right.
By that time, the money should be there.
Right.
So as you age, you keep increasing it a bit so that there is a little more runway ahead.
I'm the common man's representative. I'm sure that at least 1 out of 2 people sitting here would have ideas of investing, but you have no clue where to invest. And we don't have a clue as to where to invest because the definition of risk, probably we are a little hardened here in terms of definition of risk. And one of the points which again hit me was rethink your risk. So it is different for different people. So could you give some formula, some idea as to how you arrive at the risk factor and what all you need to factor in when you look at investment?
Most people think of risk only as the risk of volatility of the stock market, of the value of an investment going down. And when they think of property, they think of very long term, you know, 10 years, 15 years. When they think of something like equity, they're thinking of tomorrow. They're not thinking of 10 years, 12 years, but they're thinking of next week, next year. So we need to look at risk of volatility in terms of the value of the investment going up and down. That is one risk which we are afraid of. The risk that we are not afraid of, which we should be, is the risk of inflation. So your fixed deposit over the long term will not protect your purchasing power, because usually the interest rates are very much near inflation and post taxes. So when you earn an interest, you have to pay a tax on that. Post taxes, you will not have the same purchasing power as you have today because of the cut of inflation. Inflation reduces the amount of goods you can buy.
Right.
So we underestimate the risk of inflation for a long-term investment. We underestimate the risk of illiquidity. So real estate is an illiquid asset. I need the money next week. A piece of real estate is not going to be selling in 1 week. So there's a risk of illiquidity. So an investment has to tick all the boxes of being, for example, an emergency fund in a real estate is a bad idea, because emergency fund I need at once. It should be liquid. So even if it's a fixed deposit, I can break it, lose a little bit of interest. If it is a money market mutual fund, I can get the money next day. It's as good as that. But it is the risk of volatility that people need to understand much better, especially when it has to do with the stock market. And we can discuss it more if you want.
Right. If you look at my family, 2 siblings, I got a younger brother. I think I'm better placed to take risk, but my risk-taking ability is almost zero when it comes to, I take huge risk in life otherwise, but in terms of investment, in terms of money, I don't want to take risks with my money. But on the other hand, my brother probably is not as well pleased, I should say, as I am. I mean, it's again volatile. But he takes humongous risk. So the point here is, Monica, risk capacity and risk appetite, as you mentioned, are two different things. So what would be your advice to somebody who has a very high risk appetite and for somebody who has the capacity but doesn't have the appetite at all?
So for the person with the capacity but no appetite, I would say invest with seat belts on. Put on your seat belts and then you approach the equity market.
So what does that mean for
It
us?
means that you have enough money for your short-term problems, like an emergency fund, like a medical insurance, like a life insurance if you are the principal breadwinner, a pure term life insurance plan, not the endowments, not the money back, but a pure term life insurance plan. And you have divided your investment goals into short, medium, and long term. For the short term goals, you take no risk, zero risk. For medium term goals, which are say 3 to 7 years away, you begin to take a little bit of risk with equity. For goals which are 7 years and more, you can take all the risk that you want. Because equity markets, especially if you do something called index-based investing, you get what is called the Sensex return or the Nifty 50 return. Over the long term, we've seen the average annual return has been 12%.
Okay.
In a growing economy, we don't see that shrinking because India is growing at 6.5, 7. We think that the forward projections will be similar. So if you want the benefit of India's growth, then buying a very low cost, low risk index fund for the long term is investing with seatbelts on. You're not trusting your money to one stock. You're not trusting your money to a fund, active fund, where somebody is picking stocks. You are just buying the market. You're just buying the Sensex.
Right.
And we've got data to show that in a growing economy, the markets do well and the index rises over the long term. You need to trust it the way that you entrust your money to real estate for 10, 12, 15 years. You have to do the same for this.
And one of those chapters you mentioned about total fixed obligation. So for them and I, please validate if our understanding is correct. What you're trying to say when you say your total fixed obligation should be less than 30% of your income, which means all those EMIs, everything that is there that goes out of our pocket should be less than 30%. And you also say you'll be happier if you can keep it down to 15 to 20%.
No, that's right. So how much are you spending every month, which you absolutely, and this is more for the things like rent, an EMI or a car loan. So I make a distinction between a good loan and a bad loan. A good loan is one which is building an asset. And a bad loan is like a credit card debt where you're buying a holiday or a dinner.
Right.
Right? So the idea is you keep that EMI down to just 30% of your take home. And ideally do it for a good loan rather than a loan which is a personal loan which is financing personal consumption.
You can't do away with certain jargons. Some are simpler, some are even a little more complex and even obscure as you reach the fag end of the book. But debt equity, some people might know, some people may not know what debt equity is. In simple terms, if you can put it in palatable terms as to...
Right. So these are, debt and equity are asset classes. Now the thing is that you can have savings, but when savings, how do you turn savings to investments? You can do it through three main routes. You can do it through debt products, which is fixed deposits, bonds, debt mutual funds. You can do it through equity products, which is direct stocks, equity mutual funds. And you can do it through real assets, gold and real estate. Typically, when a portfolio is created, we look at something called the debt equity ratio. How much of your total investments are sitting in safer debt products and how much of your investments are in equity, higher risk equity. So debt part of your portfolio is for the shorter term goals, for the near today goals. Equity is for your longer term goals. So what is this ratio? And an easy way to remember it is that 100 minus your age can be your equity allocation.
Okay.
So 100 minus your age, rough rule of thumb becomes your equity allocation. So if you're 40, then you're still 60% in equity.
So age, I understand, is one parameter, criteria.
And distance of the goal. So the further away from today, the more equity you can have. So goals which are more than 10 years away, you put 100% into that in equity.
Okay. One is the age factor. What you do, does that have a bearing on the debt equity ratio? For example, I'm self-employed, and I'm really am. So there's somebody sitting here who's a salaried person. So imagine both of us are 40. Does that make a difference as to I don't have a salary, and I'm self-employed, and the other person is salaried? Does that make a difference in debt equity ratio, or should it?
Look, ideally, that person in the salary is already a little bit advantaged because she is already doing their public provident fund, the
PF.
provident fund, the PF. That is 12% of their basic plus the employer matches 12.
Right.
So they're already doing 24% of their basic as long-term investing. Okay, into if they're through the NPS, then it's partly equity. So your money has to work harder. You have to actually, as a self-employed person, you have to match that 24% on your own plus do more. So I would say that there should be no change in your debt equity. You should do the similar amount of equity, but you definitely need to have your emergency fund in place and those stashes of cash for future, because your income is lumpy. You need to have 3 months of running.
Yep.
Right?
We all want to invest. We all want to be smart. We all want to be safe. We all want to be happy. We all want to be healthy. You like it or not, money is important. But, I'm again going to put myself in a hardcore layman's shoe and ask you these basic questions. I'll tell you what, by the look of things, going through your book, and I've been interacting with you for a couple of hours now, I get the feeling that you are a very well-organized, disciplined person that reflects in every walk of life, So if I visit your home, I'm sure that the flower vase will be in the right place. You will have your furniture in the right place, everything. But you come to my place, when I am alone, you'll find where the trousers should be, you'll find the socks, and you'll find my mobile phone on the kitchen table. What I'm trying to say is that for someone who is a little different in the way he lives, right? But for him also the financial security is important. So sometimes the difference in the personality, difference in the make, the wiring itself can actually have an impact on the finances.
Absolutely.
What would your advice be for those people who are struggling? I wouldn't say struggling, we are just different, that's it. So what would be advice for those people who probably may not be as meticulous as you are?
So my husband solved it by marrying me because he's very much like that.
I'll have to search for another Monika now.
So that part of the house.
You have a younger sister?
She would have to be much, much younger. Oh yeah. I'll take your number. There is a nephew.
Oh, come back. You're not matchmaking here. Come on. Yes, go on.
No, so I think personality type really matters. So another story. So my husband has no stomach for risk. Okay?
Even now?
So even now. Like
Okay.
he does a little bit after he's seen the proof and all that. But, so his thing was, don't tell me, just do what you're doing.
And interestingly and strangely, he's into finance.
Yeah. He's finance. He sees the numbers the way that I do. I have done back testing. I'm only investing because I've done the numbers myself. I believe it. Before I recommend, I do all the things I tell you in the book, I do myself. He's seen the numbers. But you're absolutely right. It's really about that emotion here. It's about your instinct. So he would actually say, just do it. Don't tell me what you're doing. Just keep doing it. And when the result has come, now, of course, it's much easier, but still. But so the other thing for you to do is to work with a financial planner. For people who cannot get organized themselves, who don't have the stomach, should work with the financial planner. And SEBI has two registered, so there are two entities who are registered. One is called a mutual fund distributor. They are registered entities and they give advice which is contingent to the product that they're selling, which means they will give you an asset allocation and all that. And second is called a registered investment advisor, RIA. They give you a comprehensive financial plan. So in one case, you don't have to pay anything because commissions are embedded. In the second case, you have to pay them separately for their services like you would pay a doctor or a lawyer.
But I think financial planners are probably like a little bit like social media marketers. It's very difficult to separate the milk from the water. So how do you do
They're
that?
registered entities. These are registered entities, and they're fairly tightly regulated. I would imagine that.
So we can blindly follow
You
a
should
certified.
look the way that you choose a doctor or a lawyer. What do you do? How do you choose them? You will ask for recommendations
Yeah.
from friends and family, and you will maybe talk to 3 of them, and then go with the person who seems to be doing the right thing.
Okay.
Right? So
Right.
that exactly like that you choose your financial planner.
Right. The another one is procrastination. I'm sure that we all have. I think it's a bit like people say that the gym owners make the most of their money during the last couple of weeks of December and the first couple of weeks of January. But you ask the same person what the thing is all about in March, it would have died down. So I think we keep putting it off, saying that, yeah, I'm going to do this. But then for some motivation, for example, I'm getting motivated. Can I sustain the motivation at the same time tomorrow? It's a questionable thing, right? So what's advice for?
So a very good building block is the first step that I say. The first seatbelt is everyone should have what I call a cash flow system, which is simply separating your spending from your saving.
By the way, I love the word seatbelt. And a seatbelt comes in the book quite a few times.
Yeah. No, it's you realize the necessity only when you have an accident.
Absolutely.
So at other points, it's a problem. All regulation is like that.
Right.
Right? Even the security, airport security, is all, it's irritating, but it has a purpose.
Right.
What that cash flow system does is that you're separating your spending and your saving, and at the top of the month, you're moving the amount that you want to spend, say 20%. Say 20,000 rupees of a lakh, you're moving. In 6 months, this would have grown to a substantial amount. And now you have to, it's sitting in the savings deposit, it's losing money to inflation. You have to do something. You will have to either talk to a planner or empower yourself to invest that money. So it's a very good starting place to just start collecting savings in one separate bank account.
One of the things about the traits that I see, I go beyond your words and see the kind of personality. Sometimes I try to do that as part of my work as well. And I think you're very self-assured and super confident. Have you burned your fingers? Your own finances or advice that you're given to people maybe early on in your career? Probably the worst experience that you've had.
Of giving advice? No, I think my only sense of regret is I left investing in equity too long. I should have started much earlier.
Right.
But in terms of advice, I think it's always been very conservative. And it's always been that, look, if you don't understand it, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that I look back and say that I should not have said that.
Let's go back to common man's problems. One of the problems that we have is, okay, we have something, what do we do? And generally, yes, mutual funds, you talk about mutual funds with some degree of enthusiasm and exuberance.
I've been on the regulators committee for 12 years. I quit 2-3 years back. So the way that regulation works is SEBI works through a committee process. And the committee is made up of people of the industry, and I represent usually the investor's voice.
Right.
So I have seen the steps that SEBI has taken to make the product safer and safer.
Right.
Which is why with this confidence I can say that if you do your homework and then choose a portfolio of funds, we are reasonably sure that nobody's going to run away with your money. There isn't funny business happening under the bonnet. The costs have been reduced to very little now.
Right.
All the way that the financial sector is able to cheat you, we have tried to put barriers to that. Which is why I think for the retail investor, mutual funds is a great category, but it's a category. It's you invest in debt, equity, gold, and combinations through the product. You will have to learn to understand it before you invest.
Ask these people, ask me, at least in private we'll say that we have at least a couple of insurance policies, because traditionally, culturally, what we think of is the financial security, the investment, insurance is a very safe one. But what the phrase that you used over there is that the insurance companies, and walking through that is like walking through water infested with reptiles. What makes you say that? You're pretty harsh there.
Again, I've just seen it up front and close. So do you know what the commission for the agent is of your first insurance premium in money, life and endowment? Take a guess. What is the commission that the bank or the agent selling you the
40%?
policy? It's now, you're right, it's now almost 100%. So IRDA
100%,
has
yeah.
allowed companies to charge whatever. You know, that's very good, huh? Plus for you.
Right. So
Yeah,
you wouldn't
you're-
advise insurance at all?
No, no, wait. The story gets, I have reason to call them sharks.
Right.
These are long-term policies, okay? 15 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
What if after the first premium you change your mind? How much do you think comes back to you? Suppose I don't like a mutual fund and I redeem. I'll get my money, whatever market up and down little bit, I'll get it back. How much do you think you will get back if you pay your first premium and you don't pay your second?
I think one of the things, I don't know if it's relatable, one of the things that we look at is, okay, today I'm investing 1 lakh and so many years later I'm getting 5. All we think about is money is multiplied.
No, wait. We'll come to the average annual return. I'll come to the average annual return in a bit. No, I'm saying the costs of an insurance policy. How much do you think comes back if you don't pay the second premium? You've paid 1 lakh as the first premium, you don't pay second. How much comes back? Take a guess.
Does anything come back?
No,
That's what, yeah.
zero. Nothing comes
yeah,
back.
yeah.
The insurance rules allow the companies to keep all of it.
Getting more interesting now, right? Yeah.
Suppose you pay 5 premiums and you don't pay the 6th. How much comes back to you? Half. That's
Okay.
it. So 5 lakh, you get only 2.5. There's no return. Do you know how many % of policies last beyond 5 years? So people like you who've bought a policy for 15 years, how many of you stop paying the premium after 5 years? 56%.
Okay.
More than half the policies don't complete more than 5 years, which means more than half the people are making a capital loss. They're losing half their money. So let's say you keep the policy for 15, 20 years, whatever the length. What is the average annual return on these policies do you think you get? You've been for 15 years. The return is between 2 to 4%. We've done the numbers. Nobody disputes it. What does the PPF give you? 7.5%? That's also tax-free. What is the insurance policy giving you? Between 2% and 4%, less than a bank deposit. Why are they sold so hard? Because the first year commission is so lucrative. Why do banks trap you with these policies? Because the first year commission is so lucrative. That is the problem.
Do you get threats from insurance companies?
Well,
Or do they try to bribe you as well?
That I think they would have long time given up on.
Hmm.
But I do hear that in their offsites they have targets with my face on it.
And one of the reasons for us to not to invest is, the two terms that I got from the book. One is the financial fitness. The other one is money dummy. That sounds a little. So, how do you define a typical money dummy?
No, I'm saying you are not a money dummy. You call yourself one. It's just that because you've not engaged with it.
Okay.
And especially to the girls out there, if you can manage an extended Indian family, you can do anything.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, you can manage money. You can run a washing machine, you can fly a rocket, you can be a doctor. You can manage your money.
A healthy cash flow maintenance. How do you define that?
Which is what I said, the cash flow system. Basically, you're separating out your spending and your saving. If you're spending about half of your money every month, that's fine. And you're keeping 30% for EMIs and 20% for savings. That ratio typically works, but you need to separate. And I cannot emphasize this enough. You personally try it for 6 months and I will get a WhatsApp from you.
I alternate between butter chicken and grilled chicken, and then all of a sudden I switch to a fruit diet or a liquid diet, and invariably I die, right? That's what happens. So the point here is, if you haven't had a financial planning or discipline of sorts, it wouldn't be advisable to take a plunge full on, right? So how do you start?
So
How do you take baby steps?
So you actually give yourself a lot of time to set up the cash flow system. We have complicated lives. There are partners, there are joint family accounts. So just to set up your cash flow account, give yourself 6 months. See how you feel after 6 months.
And you create a money box.
Those are subsequent steps. The first is really your cash flow system.
But tell me, what do I do waking up tomorrow? How to set it up?
You create 3 bank accounts. I'm sure you have 3 bank accounts. By this age, everybody has 3 bank accounts.
And you're talking about 3 alternate bank accounts.
Yeah, like one ICICI, one HDFC, one SBI, 3 bank accounts, 3 banks with 3 savings accounts.
Okay, so what do I do with
In
them?
one, you collect, and because you get incomes from different sources, you make one bank, XYZ bank, that you call my income account. In your head, you're labeling it.
Income,
Any money which comes into your life goes into that.
irrespective of how much it is.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
That's where you're pooling your income.
even the pocket money.
You don't
Gifts.
get pocket money.
Right.
And at the top of the month, as the first comes, you have to pay salaries to your domestic staff, you've got to do groceries. You know approximately how much you spend every month.
That's a spend account.
That's you move that money on the first to your spend it account. You whatever is left, you move to a third account.
So you call it spend it.
Spend it. And third is invest it. So third you move to invest it. So tomorrow morning just decide this is my income account, this is my all my credit card spending, everything happens from the second account.
Right.
Third account, I'm just going to practice right now to see how much it takes for me to run the month, because most people have no clue
Right.
how much they spend every month. This will give you oversight immediately of what my income was this month, how much have I spent, what is my saving potential. Most people come back and say, I did not know I could save this much. That's the most common WhatsApp I've got. I had no idea I could save this much, you know.
Wow.
So that's your task for tomorrow morning.
Wow. I'll get back to you with that,
Yes.
how it goes.
Yes.
By lunch, I should be able to tell you. I wish we could go on for hours, but then we have to wrap it up. So one final question, from my end. We hear stock market, we talk about it, and the fact is that a lot of us find it very obscure. For example, we hear things like the stock market crash. I mean, did the roof fall down? We don't know what happened, right? But it has an impact on our daily life. So you and stock market, you have a penchant for it, and you are fully immersed in that.
Absolutely. I think it's the best way for retail investors to make long-term wealth creation is through participating in the business enterprise of other people. If we are not an entrepreneur, then we can participate in the wealth that the entrepreneurs are creating through their enterprises, the stocks of which are listed on a stock exchange. So again, in Let's Talk Money, I have really simplified what a stock market is. So it's not a gambling den, it's not a roulette machine. You can use it as that. So traders can use it as that. Investors will only look at long-term growth through the growth in the companies which make up the index. So we all are familiar with the consumer price index. Stock market index is similar. This one, Bombay Stock Exchange is made of 30 stocks, Nifty 50 or 50 stocks. These are the best stocks in the Indian stock market.
Right.
And through an index fund, you get an opportunity to buy them. And the stocks in an index don't stay static. As the sectors and the companies do better or worse, companies get thrown out, new companies come in. So from the inception, there are only 6 stocks which are still the same in the Sensex. So by doing nothing, you're holding India's best companies for a very small, tiny cost forever.
Right.
It's so when you see foreign money coming in and investing, you're wondering why is it that we are not participating in our own growth? Because see, growth reflects on the stock market.
Right.
I wouldn't say the same thing. I wouldn't have said the same thing for Japan till last year. Japan is now suddenly on a growth. But Japan has had a flat economy and a market for 20 years. So you can't say the same thing. But we've just had second generation reforms. I've watched the markets, I've watched the economy for 30 years. We're in a moment of structural growth for the next 20 to 30 years.
And Monika, what message would you like to leave us with?
Look after your money, because money is your one true friend. It buys you a hospital bed, it buys you things that you want, it buys you an education. It allows you to help your parents when they need money. It allows you to help your children when they need something. Till your last moment, it's your one true friend. After that, it doesn't matter.
Right. Come on, questions.
So markets can never give any guarantee. Even mutual funds don't give guarantees. You're participating in the market risk. So portfolio managers, you cannot give a guarantee on the stock market return at all. You can only take an educated guess. These are not assured return schemes at all. For assured return schemes, you'll have to stay with the RBI bonds, with the fixed deposits. The PMSs will have market risk and fund manager risk, the person who's managing the fund. So the higher return will come with a higher risk. That's how the market is. That will be a whole new session.
Yes, the lady over here. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Sreeduth, for dissecting the book into such cognitive chunks of information. I think it's intimidating to pick a book in finance or you hear money and finance. And
That's what I thought.
Yeah, right. And the moment you hear that, I'm just going to find some other reason to not look at it and buy it. And to you, I think it's been such a pleasure listening to you also.
Thank you.
Yeah. My question is going to be, I work in the founder's office of an LMS company, so we deal with schools. How would you recommend introducing finance in the K-12 segment, at least KG to 12? And I was just thinking how even today, if someone were to ask me a little bit about finance, I'd probably be able to say and talk a little more about company finance and ODs than personal finance, which is an absolute black picture for me. Yeah.
No, that's a really good question. And what I understand from some, I think they're introducing a couple of chapters in the new curriculum very soon through the whole school system. So I think that part is coming. But for yourself, one is just to read Let's Talk Money and translate some of that. The other thing to give class 11, 12 children also are basic tools. You know, concepts like present value, future value. What is a real rate of return? What is an internal rate of return? Because they will be now going in for higher education. They'll be taking loans. They need to evaluate the salary that education, say they are going abroad. It costs, what, 2 to 3 crore to go to the US? What salary are you going to get after that course that will justify this kind of expenditure? So an internal rate of return on this investment, where you're taking a loan, paying interest, and what salary, what kind of job are you expecting after that? So equipping them to deal with their real problems of, so I run a podcast on Spotify, Let's Talk Money with Monika Halan. And a lot of the young people ask questions, and some of them are very sweet. They're saying, my parents have actually gathered the money for my higher education, but I want to take a loan. You know, what should I do? But so the things are, loans have costs, and is it really going to be worth that education? So I think equip them with some basic tools rather than describing what a stock market is, or, you know, so those things are interesting, but I think real valuable thing is the tools.
Right. My last question would be, thank you for that. My last question would be, you spoke about insurances, and you also spoke about how money buys you a hospital bed. That's a very personal thing for me. I have a health issue myself, a chronic one called lupus. So that just got me thinking, in terms of insurance inclusion, there are a lot of chronic illnesses that are not included. Like you take any rheumatic autoimmune diseases like lupus or osteoarthritis or Sjogren's syndrome or scleroderma, to name a few. And the expenses vary so much. It's like you can't even draw a pattern. Tomorrow you've just been exposed to an infection, and you know, next thing you know, you're in a septic shock in an ICU. How would you recommend some sort of financial planning when it comes to the chronically ill?
So the chronically ill have, you are right, insurance is a real problem.
Absolutely.
We don't have, so insurance companies typically don't insure people with chronic diseases.
Absolutely.
The only recourse you have, so one thing is that companies give you medical insurance after you have taken a part of the cost onto yourself. It's called co-pay. Again, Let's Talk Money will have that. So you're saying that, okay, I'll take on to myself 10% of the bill first. And then the rest, the insurance company is happy to pay. So those policies, sometimes they give to people with these diseases. You'll have to check with different companies. The other thing is to create your own corpus, and that becomes something for you to target as a separate pot, which is not easy, but that's how it is. That's the way the insurance industry is.
So I'm tempted to ask you this. I mean, we talked about insurance, but health insurance you think is a must, is it?
You have to, and it's a difficult thing to recommend because individual claims cannot be so good. So you've got to choose the insurance company carefully to see how many of the claims do they really honor?
You don't want to get in the business of recommending some companies. No.
I would never recommend a
Right.
company or a fund. I will never give any recommendation.
Right.
No, but like you said, like if the insurance doesn't cover these rare diseases, then what's the point as well, right? So yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Anybody with questions? Yes, the gentleman over there. Well, last question we have. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for setting this up, because I think most of your questions would have been questions from any one of us. So thanks for the session. And now to Monika, like, it probably is one of the books which almost looks things 2 steps back to tell us what the narrative should be. And given the fact that the finance things keeps changing every day and every month, how do we keep up with what is good and what's not going forward?
If you have a good foundation in place, you can just very easily understand the changes. So my whole the idea is that you build the foundation very strong and personal to your own needs. Each person here will have a different story. Each story will need a different set of solutions. So one is to actually articulate to yourself, what is it that I want to do? And then you will choose products, portfolios and products. The other suggestion is, don't move from product to product. Once you've decided and you are satisfied with the direction, just go with it. There's always going to be something new coming. Sometimes crypto comes, so earlier it was small caps were doing well, now PSUs are doing well. If you chase the trend, you're always behind the curve. If you have a portfolio in mind, half in large cap, a quarter in mid cap, quarter in small cap, and maybe shave a little bit and have one slice for a sector fund. You make a portfolio and just stay with that.
Hi, ma'am. I really appreciate your writing, and I've been following you, your books, both the books.
Thank you.
I know you, from your writings, I've understood that you don't recommend any insurance product other than, term insurance. But I would like to know your, your view on unit-linked insurance plans.
So unit-linked insurance
combine.
Yeah, so they combine for everyone here. It's like a mutual fund with a little bit of insurance. The problem with ULIPs is it's a mutual fund which doesn't give you the same set of attributes that you get in the mutual fund industry, which is a clear benchmarking, the ability to see what part of the market the fund is targeting. So it is there, but it is not disclosed in that great detail. You can't choose between different products that well. And the second problem is that if you don't like a mutual fund, you can switch out of, say, company A into company B. In an insurance, it becomes a little difficult because there are front costs. Okay?
Okay.
The world is full of computers and AI and misinformation. How does day trading work?
I'm the worst person to talk about day trading. I recommend that you don't do it. 90% of the people lose money in futures and options in India. Investment and speculation are 2 different pieces.
Okay. See, if money is a great friend, this has the potential to be a very, very good boyfriend or girlfriend. So I really, really, recommend this book. And please pick it up. And Monika, it was fantastic having you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to
Pleasure.
the audience.
Yeah.
You've been wonderful. Thank you. Thanks.
I invite Mr. G. Santosh Kumar from AGM Mathrubhumi to hand over the memento.